Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Riffhard podcast. My guest today is Silenoz from Dimmu Borgir, one of my favorite bands, ever. And really, really glad I got to talk to him because as far as writing goes, and a way of utilizing extreme metal guitars in a compositional format that somehow manages to incorporate an orchestra and synth and double bass and blast beats at high tempos and just sound great. Dimmu are kind of the kings of that. And he has an amp sim coming out through Bogren Digital called MLC S-093. And I don't know if you've tried the Bogren Digital amp sims. They're kind of new on the scene. It's only been a couple of years, but they're phenomenal. They started with these one knob. They're called amp sims, where honestly I was very skeptical of a one knob amp sim, but they sound phenomenal. And they've moved on since then to making more full featured sims. And his amp is one of those, and it's killer. I was messing with it for the past week, and great high gain tones, really, really, really good stomps that come with it. Like, of note, I'd say the Octaver is a really good one. The overdrive is really nice. The delays, reverbs, all very nice. But most importantly, it doesn't sound like other amp sims. It kind of has its own thing, and it has this three-dimensional quality to it when you play it. Like, it responds to you like an amp, and that's all I can hope for. So without further ado, let's get into it. Silenoz, welcome to the Riffhard podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Actually, a longtime fan of your work, and one of the things that actually I wanted to ask you about is if you were in an elevator with someone and they asked you to describe the guitar playing in your band, how would you describe it? And the reason I'm asking is because what I find interesting about the guitar playing in Dimmu is it's good guitar playing, but it's never too much of the wrong thing ever. It's always the right amount of what it needs to be, and it seems like it's never trying to take attention away from the music. So if you have to play something super simple in the background, super simple in the background. If it needs to be a solo, it needs to be a solo. But like, everything seems to always happen for a very specific reason.
Yeah, as we come along till up until now, it's been you're finding your way of writing the songs, and I think we have become so much better at arranging the songs where it needs to breathe and where it needs to be more intensive on the guitar side, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's hard to describe what our style really is, because we try and dip into all different stuff, the simple stuff, the more technical stuff, melodic, and yeah, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint what exactly is describing our guitar playing. Good question.
Well, I feel like one of the problems I hear with a lot of bands who add a lot of elements, not necessarily symphonic, but symphonic, but just basically metal bands that add a lot of outside elements, is they tend to write songs that are very much typical arrangements, but then just add the other stuff on top of it. And so it makes for strange mixes, or you go and see the band live and it sounds like garbage because it wasn't meant to ever work together. To me, it's always sounded like the guitar parts are always taken into consideration the rest of the arrangement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are a metal band first and foremost, and guitars are obviously one of the main ingredients when you write heavy metal songs, right? So, but ever since the beginning, I think we've been very very important for us to incorporate the so-called epic or symphonic parts, or whatever you want to call it. It's so we started doing keyboards really early on and got a lot of flack for that, obviously, because we took it to a different level, and and some might say that we did too much. Some might say we did too little. It's just the way it is. So, but we've never compromised on our sound, and that's something I'm really proud of to this day. It's like being signed to a bigger label. You would think that they would have an impact on your creativity and stuff, but we have not compromised one bit ever since the beginning, and that's something that I'm really proud of.
I feel like a label who would sign you guys would have to know who they're signing. I feel like it would be really bad, just bad thinking on their part if they signed a band with your history and ethos and sound and then tried to impose things on them. That would make for a bad relationship, I think.
It would be a bad decision on their part, especially knowing our history, and that's the good thing about the label we've been on, Nuclear Blast, for since '96 when we signed. They might be the smaller bands, for lack of a better word, they might be on their ass more than on our ass, but once we get to do our stuff, and they just know that when we're ready to deliver the album, they know that they're going to get a product that they're going to be happy with, so they leave us be for the time being, and then maybe once in a while they're like, oh, so what's going on, what's happening with the new songs and the album, and like, yeah, we're working on it, don't worry.
All right, before we get back to this episode, I want to take a minute to talk about Riffhard, riffhard.com, not the Riffhard podcast, because this podcast is actually tied to our online school, Riffhard. And if you're new here, it's the world's best online school for modern metal guitarists. We've got hundreds of lessons from guitar players such as Javier Reyes, Jason Richardson, Wes Hawk, Dan Sugarman, Miles Dimitri Baker. Man, I could just keep on going on. Aaron Marshall from Intervals, Mike Stringer of Spirit Box. I'm reading now because I don't want to leave anybody off. Dean Lamb of Arcspire. It just goes on and on. It's like all the best of the best. And you get tons more than just lessons with them. You get instant access when you join, but there's also all kinds of challenges. Like once a month, we do something like 10-day down picking challenge, or a 10-day tremolo picking challenge, or a 10-day alternate picking challenge, where we really guide you through the lessons and make sure that everybody is getting better. We're not just giving you these videos and sending you out into the wilderness to fend for yourself. We are right there with you. We also do 6 songwriting challenges. Like we have a monthly one called King of the Riff, where we give you a brief, like write a Spartan war anthem or write a technical death metal song with like some criteria. And there's prizes that include guitars and cables and all kinds of cool gear. And we also have private Facebook and Discord communities of like mind and supportive people, no assholes. That's really, really important to include. Now, with Riffhard, you also get a subscription to Nail the Mix. They live under the same site. So in Nail the Mix, you get to learn how to mix metal. You also get access to Buster Otoholm's Beginner's Guide to Recording Metal. So if you're just playing guitar and trying to record yourself, you have a band and you want to make demos for your band members, or you want to make your own demos, but you just can't get them to sound anything but garbage, or you just can't get past the starting gate, it's too complicated, we've got you covered. Buster Otoholm will show you how to do it. And also, if you want to take it further and actually learn how to mix, there's no place better than Nail the Mix over at URM Academy, and that's all included with Riffhard subscription. All right, so if that sounds interesting, you want to check it out, go to riffhard.com. I'll see you there, and let's get back into this episode. Sometimes when you're writing guitar parts, do you, or when you guys are arranging the guitar parts, like you said, it's metal, and one of the main ingredients in metal DNA is guitar, driving guitar. But if you're not hearing everything else going on at the same time, it's easy to do too much. So what I'm wondering is, do you sometimes intentionally simplify parts, knowing that there's going to be a lot of stuff on top of it?
Yeah, I mean, we can differentiate pretty early on what we call a typical guitar riff, where we know it's going to be more focused on that part on the guitar, that's not to say that we're not adding any keyboards on top of that later on, but like since we've always also used keyboards and sounds in general to create songs. It kind of it's hard to say in a way, but some of the parts writes itself, and at the end we figure out what's going to be the most focus. Is it going to be guitar higher in the mix here, or is it going to be the symphonic part? If it's going to be the symphonic part, then we maybe deliberately make the guitars simpler, just
Hmm.
because they still have to be there, but they don't have to be in the forefront, and vice versa, all depending. So and that's why it takes us a little bit longer these days to finish off a song. It's I mean, sometimes it can go pretty quick, but the last couple of decades, I would say it's more we take our time, and I think we hate to wait just as much as our fans for new albums to pop, but at the end of the day, it's gonna it's gonna be self evident that it's like, oh, this is why they took their time. That's at least that's what we hope.
Yeah, with the writing process, do you work on one song at a time, or are you working on several and jumping around?
Well, for this new album, we have been going back and forth on quite a lot of stuff. We've been working in our own separate individual studios and sending files back and forth, and that has been working really well, I think. But we also make sure we take the time to leave songs or parts of songs that is intended for the album, leave them for a bit, and then go back at it like weeks or even months later, just to see if we're on the right track with each song. And so that's why it takes longer these days. We wanted the music to rest, just like you do a meal or a cake or whatever. You need it to rest, right? So that's how we approached it, at least for the last 2 3 albums.
You want to be sure it's actually good.
Yeah, and you want to
Yeah.
when you come back to it with fresh ears and eyes, you want to not necessarily listen to what's going on the guitars or the drums or stuff. You want to listen to the whole thing and see if are we zoning in on the right thing here, and then I think that's easier for us than to suddenly, I have an idea now, just that spontaneous comes up right now, right? And then
Hmm.
we try that out on the spot, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then at least we tried it. It's kind of like using the elimination method, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think sometimes when writing music, I mean, obviously, in the moment, going to get excited. People get excited about what they're working on, and I think that excitement is a good thing because it keeps you making more and keeps you like if you were writing something and you thought it sucked, why would you finish it? So it's
Exactly.
necessary in the moment to get excited about what you're working on,
Yeah.
but the problem is if there's like no time, I guess, between that initial inspiration and then actually saying, okay, this is a song that we're using, you might it's not always accurate. Like I don't feel like when we get excited about stuff, it doesn't mean it's good. It just means we got excited. And I think what you're doing makes sense. You give it time to where it's no longer at the forefront of your mind, and you can listen to it more objectively and know it actually is good.
Yeah, and it's very important to let things rest and breathe. Not only that the parts in the song has to have a flow and a dynamic and breathe, but they also need to stay away from it for a while to kind of take it in, and then I think that's the maybe the more producing part of our minds come into play, especially now when we're in the what we can call the last stages of the writing process, and we already started recording stuff, and it sounds great, and that's it's always great to start the process, and but I think it's the first time we're doing it, recording blocks by blocks. I don't think we've ever done that before, so that's an interesting thing. But I remember back in the beginning of the band, the 2, 3 first albums, we didn't think composing. We were thinking. I mean, we met up in the rehearsal place, and we were like, "Do you have a riff? Yeah. Do you have a riff? Yeah." And then we
Hmm.
kind of like melted it together on the spot, which worked most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. Um, and so that's different from now. But now, when we have written a song or the songs for the bulks that we're doing in the studio now, we go into this our own rehearsal studio and then rehearse the songs the way we have written them, and just trying to find the last piece of puzzle if there is any that needs to be added or taken away, for that matter. So we still have that spontaneity in the last minute rehearsals before the studio. And at the end of the day, an album is never finished until you have it physically in your hands, right?
Yeah, not done till it's done. Okay, so you guys go from, I'm imagining sending files back and forth, like the modern way of doing things, but then the last step is to actually get together in person in a
Right.
room and see if it works in real life.
Yeah, so we kind
That's
of
smart.
approach. Yeah, so we approached it the way as if we would prepare for a show or a tour.
Hmm.
We learn the songs, relearn the songs. Some of these songs for the new album are now already 4 or 5 years old. They're going to be new for everybody else, obviously, but for us, it's like, so you have to go back and like, how did we do this? Oh yeah, okay. And then we go as a full piece into the rehearsal studio and bang them out and jam them as if we would do it for a tour, and get to know the songs again from the scratch, basically.
It's a totally different thing to actually play a song as a band. And I think that actually, having to go from start to finish, and make it natural, you discover things about it that aren't, they're just not going to present themselves when you're sitting at the computer going part by part.
Absolutely. And now when we're getting older, especially me as a guitar player, you can feel it in the back when you suddenly have to
Hmm.
stand up playing. It's but it's something that's I feel like for every time we listen through the songs now, we play the songs, rehearse it, and even in the studio, it's still growing. It's a product that's still growing. And that's a really great feeling because um, you feel like you have done a really really good work behind it, and yeah, it's taken time, but so what? It's like we cannot let any outside pressure dictate where we and when
Hmm.
we're gonna do stuff. It has to take its time. So
Yeah. I mean, everybody has their process, and good shit takes time. It just does. I can't imagine just throwing something like what you guys do together quickly. It doesn't sound like you throw it together quickly.
no, I mean maybe some of the older stuff sounds a bit rushed, but at the same time, it has its charm as well. And every band and artist starts somewhere. And I think um, with most prolific bands, they started out early because they wanted to jam and play together and to create something together. And we still have that feeling that's the most important feeling. That I mean, we don't have to do this. We do it because we want to do it, and it's all also about timing. Because as I'm sure you know too, there's no on and off button for creativity. It sometimes it's just
Hmm.
comes in from nowhere. You're in the bathroom, in the shower, or whatever. Oh shit, I need to write this down, or whatever. So it's yeah.
Yeah, it takes the time that it takes. But I'm curious about the actual playing aspect of it. Do you have to do anything to keep up the ability to play this stuff? Because I know that like some of it, like the tremolo picking, that's you know, it wears on you after a while.
It sure does. I have in my right shoulder there's bone against bone, and that's
Hmm.
direct from tremolo picking. I can tell you that, and also being stupid in the past, not warming up before shows or and rehearsals and stuff, which we have last few years it's been more important, obviously. And so I mean, I wouldn't say that we're extremely technical in that sense. Our guitar playing, some of it is
Takes
challenging, but
stamina though.
the stamina thing is more our thing, and especially some of the chords, especially the dissonant chords, they are all over 6 strings sometimes, and if you're gonna riff on that like really fast, it takes its toll. So you try and find the technique that works. I mean, it's a studio, you can kind of do part by part, but live you only have one chance to make it right. So
Hmm.
it's something that I wish I did earlier, to warm up and stuff, and stretch, and something that we do now. But yeah, it can be challenging sometimes if you're in a venue where it's like really cold, for instance, in the backstage, and you don't you don't get the feeling like you do other times. But it is what it is. There's no parachute in this business,
No, definitely not. That's ballsy though, playing the kind of stuff you guys play without warming up. It's
Yeah, well, we learned the
that's
hard way,
some
so
balls.
yeah, we should have done it back in the day too. But I remember there was some shows we even started with a song like Blessings and stuff. It's like it's crazy. But we were young and foolish, and it seemed to work back then. So it's just
What do you do now to warm up?
just usually we do the plank. We have that as or 3, 4 of us in the crew and the band that do that every time, and we do some stretchings and the rubber band thing, and try to just get the blood flowing, and play some guitar, basically. Just easy, just to get into the mood. So nothing really brutal, just to get into the zone, so to
Just so
speak.
that you're loose and warm,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you need to practice the tremolo picking at all, like off off tour, like in regular
Yeah, I
life, or
mean,
is it
I
just
try to play the guitar every day. Sometimes I play more, sometimes not so much. But I think for the last couple of years, I've been playing guitar every day, and which wasn't the case in the past, I would say. But I make sure that I have usually fresh strings. I like fresh strings, so I change strings
Mhm.
often, and it seems like every time I've been touching the guitar or playing, there's something that comes out. Obviously, just a few percentage of it is being used, but that's the beauty of having a guitar in an arm's length at any place in the house, basically. And you just, I have this melody, or I have this idea, and whatever. Just holding the guitar, something comes out, basically. So, and then of course you go through older songs, the more challenging songs, and whatever that's in the current set list, and stuff like that, and you just jam through the riffs and parts that you feel like you need to keep in check, basically.
You just don't ever let it. You don't ever let it atrophy, basically.
No, no, it's
Yeah.
important to keep a somewhat of a routine, I guess you can say, without it becoming yeah, a negative feeling about it.
Man, for drummers though, it's the I've spoken to a few drummers who uh you know how it is with metal drummers, man. They're like Olympic athletes. Where there comes a point where just maintaining is so much work that that's what sometimes makes them quit, even when they're in great bands that do great business, and that they basically are living the dream, but the physical toll of keeping it going, like they can't stop. The band goes off tour, but they still have to go in 5 or 6 times a week and do like 3 or 4 hours of just double bass blast
Yeah, it's
beats.
it's it's
Yeah,
crazy, man. The way things have been progressing the last 10, 15 years, even. It's like an extreme sport. It is.
yeah.
It really is. And to keep that up, it's like I don't know how they do it. It's just really fascinating to watch some of these extremely talented drummers. It's crazy how it's now compared to, let's say, the 70s.
Guitar players too.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there's still a lot of guys out there that are pushing the boundaries, and I'm just floored, and it's just I know that I wouldn't be able to keep up, but that's not even my job. I mean, if I was young, there would be different ways to look at it, I'm sure. But right now, it's like, and for the foreseeable future for myself, is about keeping up my own chops and trying to become as good as I can
Hmm.
within my field.
Well, if anything, I just find it inspiring to,
Absolutely, yeah, yeah,
because I remember a time period where it was looked down upon if you wanted to get better at music. Like if in metal, like if you actually practiced or cared about getting better, took it seriously, you kind of had to hide that. And it was such a stupid time period. But I feel like now it's it's definitely not looked down on, and it's just inspiring to see how good the young generation is. Whenever I see older people who say that the young generation sucks, I think they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
exactly. It's crazy to see, and how young they are too. I
Yep.
mean. For us to get better at our instruments back in the day, we had to obviously we had some live shows or idols that we could watch and play after. But now, obviously, with YouTube and stuff, it's easier to see how so many players go into depth of learning the songs note by note, and that obviously has a positive effect on the younger generation, I would say. And but back to what you said about some years ago when there was like, oh no, metal bands leads are out, soloing is out, blah blah blah, and it's like I never got that. I thought
Yeah.
that was part of metal guitar. It's
Yeah, it was a strange, very strange time period. I felt for music in general. I mean, look, some bands have more solos, some have less, some it doesn't fit to have solos, but the attitude of trying to be worse or not getting better is the part that blows
yeah,
my
that's
mind.
that's yeah, absolutely silly.
Yeah, I felt out of place in that time period.
Yeah,
And I feel like also the thing in older days is you were basically dealt a hand in who was around you. So if you were lucky and had a great teacher around you, then like I know Joe Satriani used to teach people in the 80s out in like LA, I believe. So there's a group of guitar players who that was their guitar teacher, which, but
not a
that,
bad teacher.
no, right? But that's just luck. That's just
Yeah.
luck that he happened to be the guy around that area. If you live somewhere where it's nothing but shitty guitar teachers, at least in the 90s or the 80s or whatever, then, oh well, I guess you're going to get bad instruction. But now it's no longer a concern
No.
because you have the internet.
Yeah, we have everything at our fingertips now, and that's so good for the younger generation. It's amazing to see how people progress. And yeah, it's just the taking the guitar playing to a whole new level, and maybe touching upon stuff that we thought or looked at something impossible back in the day. Now
Hmm.
it's here.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine back when I went to high school, people in my age range being able to do the kind of stuff they can do now. There's no way, no chance. One of the other things besides the internet, I feel like that makes it a really good time for music is the technology has gotten really, really good. And like, for instance, you've got this amp sim coming out, which I've been messing with for the past week, and
All right,
it's
cool.
really awesome. And one of the features that I know are on the Bogren digital sims, but just this feature is such a brilliant feature. The recorder on it.
Yeah,
That's such a good idea.
it is, because then you have it right there. And then there's
Yeah,
no. there's no, oh, I have to turn everything on, and it's everything's there.
Yeah, you can get it in the moment. It's amazing to me that you don't see that on like every amp sim, but just the fact of having a metronome and a recorder that you don't have to know how to record to use is a big deal, and it sounds great.
It does. It really does, and it's. I think that's makes it a little bit easier for people to just get into the now, to be present with things. And like I said, instead of turning your whole studio on and blah 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 blah, just plug in the guitar and then you have everything there. It makes it so easy. So there's no excuse in that sense.
Well, I feel like the idea of being able to just get to work is huge, and I think that maybe there was a time period like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, where amp sims weren't that good. Or just starting to get good like 5 to 10 years ago, but now they're so good that why not?
Yeah, yeah. And it's especially the way they have simulated my custom MLC amp as well. I can, when I put the same settings on the sim here, it's the same settings. I get the same sound as I have through my real stack caps. I can't tell the difference really. So
Yeah, that's nuts.
That is fucking nuts, and that also shows that obviously Borgir Digital is that they are really on top of things when it comes to sounds in general, obviously, but also the frequencies and to get everything correct, And I don't know how they do that, but it's definitely a technology that has evolved immensely since the last 10 years, even.
They're doing something different than I've seen with other companies too. Like there's something different about their sims. I haven't quite figured out what it is, but there's something going on with their sims that has something like this 3D quality to it.
Right. Yeah. There probably some production secrets going on there. So
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, got the brains and ears of Jens kind of behind it. It's going to be good. But the thing about it is it responds like an amp, which is saying a lot, because one of the big problems with sims for a long time was that they felt weird. They responded weird latency. Even without latency, like it wouldn't feel like you're playing guitar. It would just feel like disconnected almost.
Yeah. It felt, for the lack of the better word, too digital in a way.
Yeah.
It's like you were like you weren't properly connecting them in the socket somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The thing, I never considered digital a bad word, but in this context, I know exactly what you mean, that it didn't feel like the input coming out of your guitar, like what you were playing into the guitar didn't match to what was coming out of the speakers.
Right. Yeah.
Almost like it was a synth or something.
Yeah. And obviously the latency is one thing, which is totally different now. And, but yeah, it's it was something weird going on, which is explainable when you think it's a new thing. It was a new thing back in the day, and you test the waters, right? So, but now it's the way things have been moving in that department. It's crazy as well, and it follows the progression of the younger players and the younger generation, and that it's good that the equipment side is also keeping up with that.
Yeah, I think you're right about the fact that it's a new technology and it takes time. I mean, I think people wrote the stuff off way too soon, because at first when it came out, and same with digital recording, it wasn't very good. And I mean, no technology is really good when it first comes out. It takes like a decade or two. And so the thing is, now we're at that point where it's been what? It's been like a generation now. It's been like 25 years. Like, when did the first Line 6 pod come out? Wasn't it like the late 90s or early 2000s?
It must have been. Yeah.
So around then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a while ago now.
yeah, you would expect the technology to be better by now.
Yeah.
So that, I think that when people talk shit about the digital gear like that, I think they're talking as though it's the year 2003. Like,
right. They probably had a bad experience with it or something, and that has stuck with them, and kind of keep the prejudice up for what's now, you know.
Yeah, I had this really interesting experience because I quit playing guitar for like 8 years, around 2000. Yeah, a long time. I don't know why. I'm not going to do that again. But what was interesting about it was from 2014 till 21, when I picked it back up, there was a massive evolution. So when I stopped, that, you know, the options for anything besides real amps were, the Kemper was just starting to become a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Plugins kind of sucked.
Yeah.
They were okay. I mean, not terrible, but not great. It wasn't wonderful. And then I come back into it, and suddenly it's like a different world. It's a different world with everything. It's super dramatic if you weren't really using the stuff in that time period in between. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes things a lot easier, even if back in the day when plugins and stuff was kind of new, and you know, Kempers were new, you could still do decent demoing and stuff, but now you can do full on production from your studio without as much as, you know, you don't have to do much to do it, you know. And
yeah,
obviously you need to have certain knowledge about where frequencies goes and what you're doing, that department. But at the same time, it's like you can do pretty much full on production from your home now, you know. That's not to say that's something that we would do, because I mean, we do full on demo productions of each song, like down to the last little detail, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's actually something I wanted to ask you about, was how far you guys go with your demos.
Right. And we go all in, full in. So it's because we have that opportunity. We all have our own studios, and it's been working really well with that now. And we obviously, apart from the drums, we do we do full program drums as well. But sometimes as a guitar player, you send over like a drum part or drums for a song to our drummer, and he's like, "But I don't have 4 hands." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right, yeah." Because you program stuff that's like, that's not possible, you know. Yeah. So we're getting better at that as well. But I think to do really good demos that also makes for the opportunity of later on, while you do the full on album recording, if there's certain stuff, maybe if there's a lead here and there, that it's I have the better feeling on the demo version, which is, in our instance, really sounding great. You know, it's like maybe we can put that in there and then reamp it or whatever, or even keep the lead with the sound it was originally recorded with. So that's a level that we're at now, which I'm really thankful for, and also with the vocal stuff too. When Shagrot does vocals in his studios, there might be certain things that you have a better feeling for when he does it there than when he does redo it in the studio for the album recording. So like, I like this part better, so I keep that and stuff like that, you know. So
that's where the fresh strings come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good that you like changing strings, because I think that the secret to being able to keep demo parts for guitar is making sure that the DI is good and that
Absolutely, yeah.
the strings are new.
Yeah, yeah. That's I mean, I don't really use any tremolos like Floated Roses anymore. So I have everything, yeah, mostly string through, and my guitars keep really well in tune as well. So it would be tempting not to change strings, but you cannot beat the sound of fresh strings through your amp. So that's something I really appreciate.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had it happen enough times where I've learned my lesson to where demoing something with old strings and intonation is starting to go, but like it's good enough for a demo, but then on the album you just can't like recreate the vibe, and then you're fucked. You're fucked because you can't use this out of tune kind of sloppy version of it, but
Nope.
you're also not doing it better.
No, you probably think you're doing it better, but in most
Maybe
cases,
technically.
yeah. But it's like it's also, I think that's also a huge part of our band is that for us the main important thing that we want to convey is atmosphere and feeling. And sometimes I'm not going to say that it's like we come up with a part where it maybe sounds like it's musically wrong or anything, but it sounds weird, and we use a little dissonant stuff and open string things and this and that. And it's like, yeah, it's hard to figure out which one the bass line should be, because maybe the riff is a bit too weird. So you kind of have to go with whatever bass is on the guitar, right? So it's we go by feeling, and obviously we we want it to be performed as well as possible on the album. Everyone wants that, but the most important thing is the feeling and to convey that atmosphere. It's like looking at ourselves as some type of mediums in a way. You convey some frequencies and some musical compositions that you have in your mind, and do basically do your best out of it, and trying to hit whatever you have at the tip of your tongue at any time. So
It's hard to hit it once and then have to try and hit it exactly the same way again if you're channeling an inspiration and an atmosphere
exactly, and also
it's like a
yeah,
moment in time.
yeah, exactly, and also as I'm sure you know too, it's like if you have some new gear, you have some new stuff you're trying out, and obviously an idea can just come out of hitting the strings with a new effect or whatever, and then if you gonna try and recreate that effect in the studio, the main studio, when you record the album later on, it's like, but I need that thing that I had there when I made the riff. Otherwise, it doesn't feel right. It
Yeah.
might sound even better in the studio, but it doesn't sound right in your head because that's not how it was done in the beginning. So a lot of variables.
Yeah, totally. So what I'm curious about then, with the way that you guys write, where work on it, put it down, come back to it, sometimes months later, in terms of, uh, you know, in context to what we were just talking about recording a demo, capturing a feeling, and then going to the studio later in time and trying to recreate that feeling and not being able to. So if you're talking about in the context of songwriting, where you're starting at a moment in time, putting it down, coming back later, do you ever have a hard time like getting into the original atmosphere of the song?
Um, Not really, because like I said, I feel like at least for me, I can only speak myself, but I feel like I'm living with these songs, going back and forth, and they still grow on me, and I'm still not tired of them, which is always another good sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's important that when everybody is okay with, okay, this is a song now, on the demo stage, and we all nod our heads and stuff, and then come to the studio. If we cannot recreate a certain sound, then we might just keep that sound that we have on the
Yeah.
demo, because it's so essential, and it would take away the feeling that we remember the song written as. I mean, the fans wouldn't know the difference because they hear the album, but we hear the initial idea.
So it sounds to me like the big difference is during the writing process, even if you're coming back to it later, you're coming back to something that's not finished, has not been signed off on by everybody, like where you agree this is the song. So that's different than when you have a song and then you're going into the studio to then recreate the song for the recording.
Yeah.
It's an interesting process because so many bands do try to get stuff done quickly. I think it's interesting how much you guys are cool with letting it take however long it's going to take. But there's other great bands that do the same thing. Like Opeth will take as long as they're going to fucking take. Meshuggah will take as long as they're going to take. Like, you can't speed those guys up.
No, I mean, even if we wanted to, it would feel, it will just feel fake basically. And that's not why we're doing this, because it would be kind of easy to do, let's say, Enthroned Darkness Triumphant Part 2, like which is a pillar in our catalog for sure. But why would we try and copy something that we've already done and then have two albums kind of competing with each other? That doesn't make any sense. And that, to me, that would totally be selling out,
Yeah. Just follow the formula from
because it worked that
record.
time and people like it, so we do it again and do an album really quick, and everybody's happy except the band.
I feel like when fans say they want more of something, they don't even really know what they're asking for, because what they are listening to with an album, they're listening to where the artist was at that moment in time, at that moment in their mental development, at that moment in those relationships between the band members, at that moment, that moment, you're hearing the product of that moment. Like if you were to try and do the same thing 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, but you're no longer in that moment, nobody else around you is in that moment. Like whatever math equation had to come together in the universe to create that album is no longer there. So it's impossible to create the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So I feel like when fans ask for that, I think what they're asking for something that doesn't exist in reality. Like they might not realize that, but they're not asking for something that's actually possible.
No, and I think they're also very immersed in nostalgia, because there's either one song or two songs or on an album in particular that for them in their point of time back then was so special that they want to kind of relive it,
Yes.
with new songs. But that's, like you say, it is impossible and total waste of energy to try and even go there, and for us that has never been an option. And we're also a band that never sit down before we start a new writing session. Okay, what songs are we gonna make? That's also kind of like shooting yourself in the foot, because something premeditated, that's not going to work either, at least not for us anyway. So we need to let the music kind of take its own life, and you try and control it within your means as best as you can, but at the same time you kind of just have to let the beast go its own path, and try and hang on and see where it takes you, basically.
Yeah, and how other people are going to react is totally outside of your control. If someone happens to connect with it, that's
amazing,
cool.
But, and I think also that once once you send it off to the label for manufacturing and promotion, then it's already a success for us because we have let it go.
Hmm.
And it's a success no matter how many copies it sells or how people perceive it. It's for us, it's a success, and that's what we want.
Do you ever hear the old records and think I would have done that differently now, or I don't know why we made that decision, or do you pretty much have like a good feeling about the catalog?
Yeah, I have a overall really good feeling about the catalog. There's some absurd moments here and there, especially on the first album and second album too, maybe. But I think when you're young, you are like, especially from the scene that we erupted from, where everybody was starting out as a young teenager, and you felt immortal and mixed with this feeling of being invincible and uh, almost this narcissistic kind of view on the world and things around you. It's like, yeah, some cringy stuff, but at the same time, that has made us who we are today and it's put us where we are today. So in my vocabulary, the word regret doesn't exist because to me, it's just learning, you
Hmm.
go along as you go along basically. And when you've been able to do this for so many years, and to be able to also now live of what you wanted to do ever since you were a kid, you subconsciously knew that this was what you were supposed to do. With standing in front of the mirror with whatever and like a fly swatter in your hands trying to play guitar, you just knew that this is what you were supposed to do. So I've never even looked upon it as a job, thankfully, because for me, the word job is like something that I has a negative connotation to it.
Hmm.
I'm just really happy and grateful that we made it this far. Even it's an accomplishment in itself, and especially knowing that we haven't compromised one bit. That's something that makes me proud.
How long were you guys a band, uh, or how long before you put out your first music did you start to get an idea that wow, this might actually work, like for real, like
I
as a
think there was
like
some.
for real in the world?
Right. I think it must have been around the third album, Enthroned Archons Triumphant, that got released in '97 when we actually got to play some decent sized, the biggest metal festivals in Europe for that matter. And we also got to be main support for Creator on their tour in '97. That's when we felt like, oh, wow. There was a lot of people coming to our shows when we had our own headline shows, and it was kind of weird in a way because you were still young and you didn't really know the whole score of it back then. But looking back, it was just yeah, it was a good feeling to see that what we had been creating in our basement or our rehearsal place where it was like almost too cold to play sometimes. It's like, wow, people actually like this. We might have something here.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost never happens. It's
No,
a super rare thing.
super super rare, and that's why I'm also like always have to pinch myself in the arm sometimes because it's just I know that what we have sacrificed and stuff to be where we are, and I always say that it's not enough to be in the right place at the right time once. You have to be in the right place at the right time
Hmm.
all the time, every time. And even then it's still as a small percentage that somehow make it. I don't know what people will describe as making it these days, but I mean, for us to even record an album and have people come to our shows and seem to dig it, that's the cream of the cake.
Yeah, totally. Well, the what you're talking about though, the luck factor. I've always, like I'm a make your own luck kind of person philosophically. However, I feel like you can't make 100% of your own luck. There's a lot of stuff that's just outside your control, like how a person who is going to say yes to putting you on a tour, are they in the right frame of mind when the option is presented to them? Like the person who says yes about the record deal, were they, did it come on their desk before or after lunch? Like, did they get into a fight with their wife that day or not? There's all kinds of interesting, like, little things where if someone was in a totally different mood with that decision, it could have gone a different way, which could have then completely, sent you down a different path. And all those things coming together to work right is, it almost never happens, basically.
No, it almost never happens. Like I said, it's just amazing that we still can do this, even taking into consideration our trials and tribulations with all the lineup changes over the years. Some has been not so good. Some have been obvious and self-evident. But there's a stubbornness factor involved here as well, I think, and it's that's something that we probably haven't really looked at, but it's been there, and the more flack we got in the beginning, the more that was like petrol to the fire for us, so it's
Totally.
it's like when people talk shit about you and they cannot stop talking shit about you, that sooner or later someone is going to pick up that band name and it's like, oh, are they really shit? I'm going to go and listen for myself, and then suddenly you might have a new fan, So
Also, I think for everyone that's talking shit, there's a lot more people who are just enjoying it, because I think the shit talkers are a very small vocal minority, but I feel like they're representative of a bigger picture. And there isn't a single band in metal that's successful who doesn't have a lot of haters. And the bigger they are, the more haters they have always. Like if you look at Slipknot or Avenged Sevenfold or any of these bands that are really big, the amount of haters they have it's unbelievable. Like if bands think they have haters, they should go look at the level of hate that Slipknot gets online.
Yeah.
Slipknot has more haters than most bands will ever have fans.
Exactly.
And
yeah,
it's like an ocean of haters, but the ocean of actual fans is like multiple times the size of that. And
of course.
It's always like that.
Yeah, it is. And I just look at it as free promotion, because at the end of the day, someone is mentioning your band name and someone else is going to pick up on it. And it's just like, just going to catch on. I've seen that on my own eyes. So that's something that I'm not too worried about. I've never really been too worried about it, actually, because if you get hate, that means that you're also doing something correct.
Actually, I remember in 2000 or something, or 2001, when I first heard you guys, I was actually curious because some people I knew who they always hated bands I was into. They had terrible taste and they hated you guys so much that it made me curious to go check you guys out. And I was like, and I got puritanical and was like, this is awesome. These guys are so fucking stupid. They have shit for ears. And anytime I hear people hating a band too much, now it makes me curious, because so many times I found some of my favorite bands that way, just because people have bad taste, or the loudest people tend to have bad taste, or sometimes this is the part that gets me, is they're not even being honest. Like lots of the haters don't actually hate the bands that they're talking about. Like they secretly like them. They're just saying they hate them for popularity reasons.
Yeah, exactly. That's
crazy.
It's a peculiar thing how the human brain sometimes work, or not work in this instance, but it's a different story.
Yeah, I admire bands that do controversial things by just existing. Existing is controversial, but but don't change anything as a result.
No. That's and that's the thing we've always been, you know. I mean, we could easily been, if we didn't stay strong in the storm, you know, you could easily be swayed here or there, or being, you know, talked into doing this and that, and but we've always done what we feel is right for us, you know, and we know that if we end up, you know, loving the album and we release the album, that means that there's going to be people out there who's going to agree with us, you know, and those are the ones that you focus on.
Well, I've thought about it, like, so say that there's a hater, just take any hater, just some random hater who is really loud and really trying to get this message through to the band. What happens if the band listens to that guy? Like, you're just going to let this random fucking person just like make your decisions for? That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's insane.
That's insane. That's insane.
If you actually think about the process would be if you were to listen to haters, it's actually really insane.
Yeah,
like means like some random dude in Iowa fucking hates you, so you're gonna you should invite him to your house, like fly him over and have him at your writing sessions and make sure that he approves everything you do.
Don't worry, I'm gonna make the riff that you like. Listen, is this okay? It's like,
it's insane. It's completely insane. So, man, we're just about out of time. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to hang out, and I want to wish you good luck with the release of the MLC 093. It's a killer amp. Like I said, I've been working with it the past week, and
cool.
It's sick. I'm always happy when there's a new amp sim that actually sounds good.
Yeah, I'm. Thanks for having me, man, and I'm really happy that you like the sim as well, and I'm really thrilled about it. It's been in the making for a while, so I'm really looking forward to have it out and see what people say. And I think, you know, there's a lot of opportunities with it, you know, as I'm sure you have seen already and tried out. So it has a lot of features. We even added a clean channel because my main amp,
it's a great clean.
Yeah, it has the great clean, and but my original amp does not come with a clean channel. So we added that because my next custom will have to include that anyway. And so yeah, it's I think it's a really killer sounding high gain amp, but you can make all the sounds you want out of it, basically.
It's got a good octaver on it too, which
yes, it does.
Yeah. I was not expecting that, but octaver is one of my favorite guitar effects.
Cool.
And it's a really good one too. It tracks great, and it doesn't sound like, sometimes when you get these octavers that aren't like the pedal, you get this like sound where the octave sounds totally disconnected from the guitar
like it's
signal.
Two separate things almost.
Yeah, like it's two separate things. Which it is, but the good ones blend them. Yours sounds like one thing, which is great.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm looking forward to hear the sounds, man. And thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh, one thing I actually forgot to ask you about, if you have 2 minutes, I just want to mention it's really cool to see you guys with Nordström again. We've worked with him a few times over at Nail the Mix. Like, we've had him go through some of his mixes on with us, and he's been one of my favorite mixers forever. And so it's cool to see you guys working with him again. What's that like?
Yeah, no, it's great to be back with Frederic. I mean, we've done 3 albums, is it, with him, and he's done the remix also of the Puritanical 20 years anniversary one,
which came out great, by the way.
I think so too. It's more to where we wanted in the first place. But I remember back then on the original recording, we spent so much time on the actual recording that when we were going to mix it, we only had a couple of days, and to mix that album in a couple of days, that was just almost a suicide.
He told me that it was very challenging.
Yeah, very challenging, especially when you have 6 people screaming down his ears. You know, it's like, still that's like over 20 years ago now. It's crazy to think about that. And
The original mix has its charm. The drums,
absolutely, yeah.
the like, it sounds like it's exploding, which is
Yep.
really cool.
It's mastered really loud too, so it's
Yeah.
like almost on the
It's
limiter.
it's weird because like it doesn't sound like what you think of like a black metal mix or something. It sounds very modern for the time and like high production, but it's distorting like crazy. But I like it. Like, it's cool. Like, there's something about it sounding like it's blowing up that's really cool, and how loud the drums are. Some people say the drums are too loud, but I just think, I don't know, that's the charm of it. It just sounds like, it literally just sounds like it's exploding in a good way.
Yeah. No, so it's great to be back with Frederic. You know, it's been a while, and like we did in the past albums, we record everything. So there's we don't use any plugins. It's back to pedals and amps and cabs and the full thing, full regalia.
If you're going to work with him, you may as well do it like that.
Yeah, because that's also what he's used to, and I think it's important to find a middle ground in that sense, not to compromise on anything. Like I told you earlier, if there's a part on a song which we have already a plug-in sound that we're going to use that. But it's like, you know, it's a really interesting way of doing things. Especially the way we have built up the demos and stuff, and then we're working now with Frederic after so many years, and we've all grown a bit older and wiser, hopefully. So and all of us are a bit more patient as well. So far the recording is going really, really nice.
The patience is a good thing. I'm laughing just because I think about what a fucking monster I used to be when I was younger, and how I'm a way more patient now. It's just comes with age, I think.
It does.
Yeah.
And to kind of sway away all the bullshit that actually took so much energy back in the day. Now it's like, yeah, whatever.
Focus on the task at hand.
Exactly.
Basically. All right, man. Well, thank you very much again for taking the time. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and have a good one.
You too, man. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.